All right, Don, we are recording. What are we talking about tonight?
Well, tonight we're going to make some announcements. Julie is from Texas, and she's going to be one of our dealers for the high top feeders. I can't build them and make them and ship them, so she's going to be out there in Texas. She's hosting some classes in the spring. She hosted me back in the summertime. We've done some classes, and Kelly is working with her. And our manufacturer, because we can't make our boxes, or basically boxes and feeders, is Antler Ridge. Todd Barnhill is the owner of that. He's just getting started. He's a young, well, he's an older gentleman, but a young business person getting into this. So he's really getting a start. And when we did a little program last time, he really got a bunch of orders. So a lot of people was getting upset because his orders was a little slow. He got overwhelmed too quick. So if you're needing bee suits, various paraphernalia, he is going to take care of that. Now, if you're going into business and you need a web page, he's the man. He does my page, and he'll give you a price on what you need done. And we got, we're going to be doing a show out there twice in springtime, in April. And hopefully we'll be going back in June again. I've got a few feelers out and maybe a few possibilities to do some presentations. Next thing we talk about is it's coming around wintertime, so you need to get into those hives. You need to do some change outs, check for your beetles, check for mites, and get those things ready. I'm not a big believer in running 2 deeps and 2 supers. I like to run mine singles or at the max. 1 deep and 1 super. The bigger the box, the more area, so the more honey that they're going to consume. It sounds contrary to what a lot of people constantly tell you. You need a lot of honey on there, 60 pounds. I don't think I have 60 pounds of honey on 10 nukes. So basically, I run my nukes and 5-frame nukes through the winter, and I pull most of my honey, and that way, you know, if you need to feed back, you can always feed it back. If you're going to feed back honey, feed it straight. And another thing is we're getting more and more publicity. So this group is growing. We're getting more contacts. And now we got a supplier that's going to build the equipment. If you need equipment, I got the best price possible as far as nukes. We bought 1,000 boxes already made. He'll make them to your specification, and he actually beats Man Lake's price. And I get wholesale prices from Man Lake. And Julie is going to be selling out west, and I'm always looking for dealers that's out in the east that wants to handle the product. I'll get you authorized up to where you can do that. The thing that what you want to do is think about making money at this thing. You know, it's not just a hobby for everybody. It's a money-making thing. So go in it to make money. And you got enough people from one end of the country to the other that you can ask questions, and my techniques do work. And I say, if you use 10% of what I tell you, you can make money. So let's get to some questions. I know everybody is, you know, last 2 weeks, they want to find out what's going on.
Okay, first up is Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Hey, Don.
Hey.
Going into winter now, like you said, you got to start checking your hives and everything. So say you come across a hive that's queenless. Is it still too late to throw a new queen in there?
Well, personally, if you can find somebody that's got queens now, I would put a queen in. Greg is up in Ohio. He might have some left, you know, queens left over. I don't know how far down he's selling. I sell nukes to the 30th of November, and I got another week to 2 weeks that I'm cutting off on queens. I will have queens for 2 to 3 weeks maximum, pickup only. I'm not shipping. It's just plain too cold right now. So get on my page, Don's Keepers, find someone close to you. We ship a lot of queens. It's not that we can't ship them. Kelly is one of Stephen's best customers right now. He's got him on a quick dial, the rapid dial. So if Kelly wants to get in there and say a few words about the queens, the gentleness of them, and how business is turning around for them. Go ahead,
Joey.
Kelly. Gotta get your mic on.
You're unmuted, but your mic's not working.
No.
Nope, I can unmute you on this end, it looks like, but your microphone's not working. Try it now. Nothing.
No.
Okay, we'll come back.
All right, so but it's still not too late to requeen. I mean, I gotta go check my hives this week. So, but I'm just, I just wanted to ask the question if I could come across a hive that's queenless, if it's not too late.
You probably got a window of 2 to 3 weeks right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would personally, if I was in Ohio right now, or New York, or Pennsylvania, if I had the next 3 weeks, I'd locate me a queen. Because if you don't have enough pollen coming in and enough honey, or enough stores, then you can always add honey or feed them right now. You got plenty of time to build them up.
Yeah.
But make sure you treat them.
Yeah, no, I've been treating, so.
Now, if you follow the group on Facebook, Fat B-Man group, a lot of people is talking about how much they could charge for us rounds. Now, you're a living testimonial that you listen to what I said, you make $20 a round.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I do good on those Ross rounds, I'll tell you. Next year, over the winter, I'm building a lot more of those supers. I tell you that those things are awesome.
Oh yeah.
I'm not even buying the 10 frame boxes. Forget it. It's a lot easier with the 5 frame.
What I've been telling you right along.
Yeah. Yeah. But like you said, winter's coming, and I'm just debating when I should start preparing for winter, as far as putting on some winter patties and stuff like that. I think I still have a couple of weeks yet, but
If you're going to put patties on, I would put small amounts on, because if you put too much, you're going to encourage the beetles.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm gonna wait. I think I'm gonna wait yet. Oh,
Right
Not
now,
like-
you should be getting plenty of pollen coming in.
yeah. I mean, as far as the goldenrod is still, well, it's on the way out now, but the asters are still blooming. So
The asters will bloom off and on. And then you got your dandelions will come in too.
yeah. Oh, probably still have a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Don.
Well, there's a good example. I keep telling people, if you listen to 10% of what I'm telling you, you will make money. And, it's just the same old thing I keep repeating myself. You can't listen to 30 different people and find you're going to make some money. Look around, find somebody who makes money. If they're willing to share something with you, I think you'll make money. But if you listen to every Tom, Dick, and Harry, I call a lot of armchair experts that have 5 hives or 10 hives and wrote a book and they know everything about bees. I don't know a lot about bees, but at least I make a living and I'm not in the hole all the time. I eat every day. That's the main thing. So, yeah.
Well, next year I think I'm going to start selling bees. So hopefully, hopefully I can get down there to see you, or somehow get your stock over to by me.
I think, just Steve Chen come down here from New York, and you see how well he done. I mean, there's no place that I can tell you to go and for less than $10,000 open a business that you already got the foot in the door and making money.
Yeah, I really don't. I mean, he's about a half hour away from me, and I don't hear nothing from him, even on the Long Island Beekeeping Club there. I mean, I don't even know how are the bees doing that he bought.
I haven't. He usually calls me when he's getting ready to buy bees. He buys a whole bunch of them and probably sells half of them, keeps half for himself.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't belong to that club, so, but.
Now, if you're going to order bees, the best thing to do is get your order in early. I was sawing wood today, and Stephen is down there setting up another 2 yards. I'm building another, well, what I got sawed today will probably run 200 mini nukes. So I'm going to try to put about 300 to 400 mini nukes here for students just to learn on.
Yeah.
That's another thing that is a good seller. So Julie's going to start selling those mini nukes, I hope, out there. A lot of people want to make their own queens.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's the way to go. That's where the money is.
I keep telling everybody, but everybody wants to make honey. The problem with, everybody should make honey, but the problem with honey is you gotta, if you want to make money, you have to do a lot of honey. And if you're going to do a lot of honey, you don't have time for nothing else. So then you start selling it by the barrel. So that's, you know, I learned that real fast. You got to have bills. So, you know, I can take that same honey that I'm going to sell for $2 wholesale and turn around and sell 2 or 3 nukes out of the same amount of honey.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, I get top dollar up here for the honey. I'm not complaining about that, but it's like you said, who the hell wants to sit at a farmer's market all day long? And, you know,
well, some people just start out, they're socializing. I mean, I've done it. You know,
yeah.
I'm not knocking people that do.
Yeah, I can't believe though, you know, I mean, once you get out there and your name gets around, you know, it's unbelievable just the amount of phone calls I'm getting just to do, I got a cutout to do next week. And I told the guy, I said, you know, if I take them now, I said, I told him plain and simple, I said, you're better off leaving them in your soffit until the spring. I'll come and get them. You know, I mean, they're not in your house. They're not hurting anybody. Leave them in there for the winter. Because if I take them now, chances are they're going to die.
Well, see, once you get your name that you got my bees up there, yeah, I mean, you could buy bees from anybody. There's a lot of people out there, but people that buy my bees seem to have good success, good repeat business. And, you know, it takes 1 to 3 years to really get your name out there. And usually the 3rd year, you're not going to keep up. You cannot make enough, get enough bees. Kelly will tell you about that. Kelly, first, I hope he got his mic turned on. His first year, he'd call me up and says, my phone ain't ringing. The 2nd year, he says, it won't stop ringing.
I think your mic's working now, Kelly.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don's correct. After about your 3rd year, it's going to bust loose on you. You're going to have a hard time keeping up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's why I'm saying build boxes now. If you want to get into the business, if you have 200 hives, you can make a decent living. You get 500 or 800, you can afford to hire you part-time hands to help you out.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, but bees are a lot easier than honey. That's for sure.
Well, not everybody wants to fool around doing the things like I do. You know, my son does not want to teach. I want to get Julie out there to do classes. And when you get people sign up, 25 to 50 people in a class, you know, there's not that much work in it. And no one wants to share everything. And everything's so simple. It's just, that's what I started my Bee Man channel about. Common sense beekeeping. That's all it's about. If it don't make sense, it probably ain't going to work.
Yeah. Even, you know, it's, you know, I mentioned on the last chat, even I'm getting phone calls from schools now to do, you know, to do presentations. And it's like, oh God, it's unbelievable. So,
well, I have people call me, and it sounds crazy to a lot of people. Someone calls me to come pick bees up. They got a swarm or to do a cutout 3 to 4 miles. I try to get a hold of a student. I lose more money. And usually when you start selling my bees and get your name out there, in 3 to 5 years, people will pay you to speak at a bee club more than you can make in your bee yard in a day. Believe me.
yeah, I believe it. All right, Don, thanks.
Okay.
Next up is Linda. You got unmuted on your end. There you go.
Okay.
Evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, I got to tell you what I did this week. I told you on the last chat I was getting ready to rob my bees. They hadn't had everything capped over, but they did, and so I robbed them. And I decided to go ahead and try and split them since you were talking about get your splits done. I ordered some queens. My queens came in. I ordered 5 queens. One was dead, but 4 are okay. So I went out there today and pulled off the rest of the supers and got the honey out and was going to do these splits and I got cold feet because of our weather forecast that's coming up. It's turning cold on us, 50s and 30s. And my bees are doing so great. I'm just freaked out thinking I don't want Jack with them and screw it up. So,
Well, the thing is, if you don't work them, even in, moderate weather, they get to a point, they're going to do two things: multiply and store honey. And they'll throw queen cells out late. And if you don't have enough drones, then you're going to lose part of that hive.
well, I've got these, I got in them and I was going to just take my top, I have 2 deeps on each hive. I was going to take 1 deep and move it over and put a new queen in with it. But there was absolutely no brood in the top deep. It was all honey. So that kind of scared me because I didn't want to just stick that over there with no brood in it. And then I thought if I go into the first deep and start messing with them, I'm going to just screw everything up.
No,
But now I've got the, you think I still can?
Well, if you got a mated queen, you really you don't need a whole lot of brood. You can take
Okay.
2 frames, you can split into a 5-frame box. Put a couple frames of honey, find one that maybe got a bunch of pollen on, and then put your new queen in there and 2 frames on the outside, new foundation, and then shake 3 or 4 extra frames of bees in there.
Okay.
And don't close them up. Leave them open for at least 30 minutes. That's going to give
Okay.
enough time for some of the old foragers to go back, and some of the nurse bees are going to stay. And then keep that entrance reduced down. You should have no
Okay.
problem.
Okay.
You know,
All
if-
right.
If you don't make any mistakes, you're not going to learn.
Well, I've
I
made
made a
plenty
lot
over
of
the years.
Well, I make mistakes. There's a lot of things that goes on.
Okay. Well, I got to thinking I've got these queens now, and so what do I do with them? I don't want to just let them die, and you can't keep just queens around.
Do you put pesticide in your house?
No, not really.
You have pest control come in and spray your house?
Yeah, every season, once a season.
Oh, well, you got to be careful now, because if you do that now, the bees will die. Go to your faucet and use cold water and run your finger over it. Let the water run on it and then rub it on that screen, the screen wire,
Yeah.
once or twice. And, you can keep those bees a couple of weeks in there.
Okay. So to maybe wait till the weather turns around better and then go ahead and do it.
If, the weather bothers you, yeah. If it's drizzling outside, I shake bees. I work bees just about every day.
Okay.
I don't have an excuse. The weather's cold, the weather's hot. I work bees. The only time I
Okay.
don't work them is, if it's raining outside with thunder, then I usually come in.
Yeah. So I don't have to worry about getting a whole bunch of brood over with them because it is a mated queen.
It is a mated queen, yeah.
Mhm.
I'd
Okay.
put maybe 1 frame of brood there because, you're going on the assumption that they are mated queens. I don't know who your supplier is. You always check somebody out, make sure they're reputable.
Right.
Because you got to watch. Sometimes they sell a lot of virgin queens. If you don't know what you're looking at, you can make some mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I will proceed on. Thank
It's a
you.
learning curve, believe me.
Thanks.
Okay.
And over to George. Go ahead, George.
How's it going, Mr. Don?
Hey, George.
Back to that same thing, I put the ad out there a couple of times, man, and my phone went crazy. I mean, I still got people wanting nukes today. You know what I mean? So if somebody says they can't sell bees, it's crazy.
Well, a lot of people just can't make that decision. They'd have to be positive. I've got a bunch of students all over the place, and if you listen to 10%, you'll make money.
That's a fact. That is definitely a fact. Like I said, I got people still, like I said, wanting them today, man. I just, they're coming in faster than I can get them together.
Well, you got your investment back the first year. Within 6 months, you can't beat that, can you?
Four times in less
4
than
times
less
over.
than- less than 5 months. Definitely. Like you said, build boxes, man. That's all I can tell you. Build boxes.
You got to build them boxes.
If you ain't gonna build boxes, you won't make it.
You'll never keep up.
That's a fact. All right.
Okay. Nobody else got any questions right now?
See, we got some new people. Welcome to the chat. Don't be afraid. Put your hand up. Use that hands up. You can ask questions. There's no bad questions. You're not gonna learn unless you ask questions.
I'm gonna have to start calling on people soon.
Yeah, we'll call on them. The screen goes black.
Yeah, I can't do that to Josh anymore because he blanks out on me.
Well, Julie's probably got something to say.
Oh, George is back on.
Julie, let's talk about when I came out there. I come out there for a barbecue and I was so busy talking, didn't have time to eat, did I?
No, you didn't get to eat anything. Next time, I'll take you in the house.
You didn't feed poor old Don?
I tried. I made him a huge spread, but
How's he gonna
everybody
be?
else,
How's he gonna continue to be the fat bee man if you don't feed him?
I fed him other times. I kept food him constantly.
Do you have any dates yet when he's gonna be coming back out there again?
We are shooting for the 18th, 19th, or around the 19th. Right, Don?
Right.
Of November it was, or?
No, that'll be
No,
in April.
April.
Oh, April,
Yes.
okay. Aren't you going somewhere in November too, Don?
Well, I haven't decided on that yet.
Oh, okay.
Everything's up in the air. I get a lot of offers to speak at bee clubs, but you know, they have to get things approved with their board members and all that. And when you have a bee club, that part of the people want to hear me, and then the other part think it's all a bunch of hooey. So that's the thing you put up with.
Gotcha. All right.
we had
What's that, Julie?
We had a blast having him out. Me and Kelly did.
Good. You sold all his queens?
Yes. I sold a little bit over 900 queens this year, and I am shooting 2,000 next year.
Wow, very nice.
Yeah, staying busy. He's keeping me on my toes.
Okay, George has got a question again. Let's go over to George.
Yeah, I'm still gonna try to come down there in Houston when y'all get those dates together. If y'all let me know the dates when y'all get them for sure. And Don, what about setting up your 5 frames to go in the winter? Double box them or single box?
If they cover in all 5 frames, then double box them. I try to run mine single with a feeder on them. Before I forget, I want to mention the next year prices. Our 2-pound packages are going to be $95. 3 pounds will remain at $115, and the nukes will be $175, and the overwintered nukes will be $200. That price is picked up here. Now, Stephen will ship, and if you got large orders, the best thing to do is to contact Stephen, and he'll get with you on what prices he's going to charge you for large bulk orders. I'm not trying to do bulk orders here because I'm limited to 200 to 500 hives here. And when I start selling 25 here, 25 there, my yard goes down fast.
Yeah, you're right. Them big orders seem to hit you pretty hard, man, when you're trying to get stuff back together, you know. I like the 2 to 4 per customer deal. That's the best way to go.
Well, I try to teach my students when a customer comes to show the customer the queen that's walking on the frames and got eggs, show them larvae, pollen, honey. There's a bunch of charlatans out there that do what they call Frankenstein hives, where they put a caged queen in there and they'll pull 3 frames from different hives, shake a whole bunch of bees in and let them go that day. To me, I try to tell people if the queen's not walking, then that's not normally the queen. But now, if you get a hive where the queen has been in there for at least 3 days and they accept her and she's out walking, there's not a thing wrong with that. I mean, there's different ways to look at it, but if you're buying an overwintered nuke, buy a overwintered nuke.
Right. Makes sense.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
No one else got any questions?
Well, Ernest had his hand up, but it looks like he ran away for a minute.
Oh.
We'll go to Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
So Don, when you set up your nukes, you to sell a nuke, do you give them an empty frame and you're giving them 4 frames of bees, or you give them 5 full frames of bees?
There are going to be 5 full frames of bees. Now, maybe one might not be all the way drawn out, but there's not going to be 4 frames of bees and 1 new foundation. And when you start doing volume, you can't have 5 full frames with a lot of brood in there, because if the customer doesn't pick up in a day or 2, that whole hive, that nuke changes on you. It'll start to draw, you know, like if you're starting to run numbers 100, 200 at an order, on some of our big orders, we have to get them ready 24 hours before. We have to check everything. And if they're not picked up, the hive is so strong, and 1 frame of bees is like a pound to 2 pounds of bees there. So when they get crowded and you open that box up from the customer and they start drawing queen cells, inexperienced beekeeper just throws her hands up. I don't want that, it's gonna swarm. An experienced beekeeper says, I'll take it, because they go home and they split it right away. So there's things to look at, and you never dump all the bees from your nuke into the customer's box. That is what you have is your seed for your next go around. And when you come here, I will teach you how to put a packaging, a 5-frame nuke, turn around and sell it in 7 days. There's a trick to do that.
Yeah.
So you can't put everything on the internet. Gotta make money teaching something.
No, I was just curious because I know a lot of people, they'll set up a nuke and then they'll throw 1 empty frame in and give you 4 frames of bees.
You know, if the customer's not, if they're not aware of things, they'll buy it. Now, I've had a lot of people come here, inexperienced beekeepers. You open a hive or a nuke up, and there's a frame on each side, and it's just about 3/4 capped white honey. And right away they say, I want that one. And you have to stop and say, look, you want to buy brood, and there's only 2 frames in there of brood. You know, I try to talk them out of it, or go to another hive and get a frame of brood and put in there, because you don't need the honey. You need brood to make another hive up.
Yeah.
So I try to teach my students to look at the box. If you don't want to buy it yourself, then don't sell it to your customer, because it'll come back to haunt you.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said too. Even if the 5th frame is a half a frame of is drawn out, because I tell you, in those just the nuke boxes, if you got 5 full frames in there, to pull that 1 frame out, you know,
You're gonna roll bees.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, at least you got a half a frame. It's a lot easier to take that first frame out.
Yeah.
Oh. All right. Thanks, Don.
Okay. Ernest, did you still have a question for Don? Ernest, you there?
Got to unmute.
Yes,
Again.
no, maybe. Okay. Moving on. No hands up again. Hey, Paul, if you want to see Don run, come down and watch when he sells a nuke, because he'll run over and grab his seed frame again from another hive and run it right back to the empty box. He runs. He puts on some good speed.
That's how you could take the box that's sitting on your stand and sell it 4 or 5 times a month. So you got, you know, common sense added up, 175 times 4 times. Now, how high do you stack a box of honey to make that kind of money? And you don't have liability.
Well, I saw his one YouTube video where he was doing the split on that nuke. I don't know how many times you split that thing, and you were just walking back and forth with frames of bees.
Splits make money.
Every bee counts.
Yep.
But I tell you, I have some of those double nukes, and I really don't want to overwinter them like this. I should have split them, but I have them 3 boxes high, you know, the double 4 frame. And I really don't want to overwinter them that big, but I have no choice now. So.
Well, see, a lot of times there's a lot of things that's put on the internet, and people try this, try that. And what happens in a year or 2 is you start looking in your garage, you got all this obsolete equipment you're not using, either too heavy, too bulky, or don't work right. So find out what is going to work and stick with it, and try to keep everything as standard as possible.
Yeah, but even those 4-frame double nukes, I mean, they build up so quick, Jesus. And then with my arm being in a sling, I just couldn't handle it all.
That's
Oh.
why 10-frame hives, is not a good thing to go with. I mean, if you're young, it's good for a few years, but after a while, you're gonna have a bad back.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, those 5 frames, they're the best.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people don't explain, and I try to cover that a lot of times when students come here. You have to figure out if you're gonna work them, or if a husband's gonna work them, or if a lady's gonna do them. If you got a bad back, then do all mediums. If you're gonna start selling nukes, then you run mediums and deeps. Because there's handicapped people or people with disabilities, they like mediums, and they like 5-frame boxes because they can actually put them on their lap if they were in a wheelchair, and they can work a 5-frame medium. And those things I bring up because a lot of people don't understand that. They just, the old ways, 10-frame, and in my yard, there is absolutely no metal on any of my beehives. I use wood. Another thing I want to put out there is we put on our Facebook page, if you're a vet, you got a VA card or your veterans thing, you come here, I'll teach you, but it's hands-on. You're going to get out there and you're going to work, going to get your hands dirty. Before you come, read Tom Sawyer, see how he did it. I'm doing it on the B scale.
So Don, if you're running those migratory covers on your nukes, do you worry about water getting in the hive?
Have you ever walked up to a hive and just without your hive tool lift the lid off?
Yeah.
Okay. Question answered?
No, I know, but even if you have, say you have the feeder on the top and then you have your cover on, I mean.
Well, the cover is not going to stick on the feeder. There's
Yeah.
no propolis.
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of times, if you stop and think, there's a lot of things that's self-explanatory.
Yeah.
That's the good thing about these chats. If you don't ask, you're not going to learn. I can't read your mind through the screen. I'm here to help you.
Yeah, I was worried that when I was building some of my equipment, it wasn't totally level on, and I was like, what am I'm not gonna kill myself over this. The bees will propolize it up anyway. So whatever's not totally.
Well, when you do this, that
Yeah, I
tells
mean,
me-
I'm not getting a big wobble, but I'm saying, if I have a 1/16th of a gap there, I'm not killing myself over that trying to level it off completely.
Are you making your own boxes?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to go over how I teach how to make boxes. You put your rabbit on the ends, three sides, frame rest and both sides. Then your other piece, your ends, your sides, 19 1/8. Now, when you assemble them, I teach you to put the frame rest down on your table saw, and then put the side piece to it and hold it down, staple it, or however you're going to fix. I staple my stuff. Do that all the way around, and before you do the side pieces, I'm using 5 staples per side. Staple the ends so they hold together, throw a square at it, make sure it's square. Then once it's square, then finish stapling. When you do a bunch of them, then take it back to your table saw, set your fence to where it barely touches the wood, and then take 1/64 off. That trues it up all the way around. Bring your blade up to just clears the wood. Now, that thing has to sit square. But see, what happens is people assume that all the wood is equal. Some pieces of wood, when you put it together, might be a 1/16th, a 32nd higher. And if you rub your finger across the edge, you can feel that distance. So if you stack 3-4 boxes up, then you get that wobble. I had a lady come here last summer, and the second box after she built it, she stacked it up. She says, "Why is yours stacking square?" And I've been building boxes, mine wobble like a rocking chair. And I said, "Follow exactly what I'm doing." And she seen that little bit made a difference. It's just things you learn from experience over the years.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea running that. So you're running all 4 sides
all the way around. That
all
way,
the way around.
if you push the bottom, so you're putting the frame rest down and make sure the handles are all facing downward. And then when you get them all assembled, then put them on the table saw and just shave them all the way around. If you
Yeah.
bring your blade up a little too high, where it breaks that wood as it cuts too high, it leaves a circle. So drop the blade down just till it's breaking the surface, and you'll have perfect boxes. I learned that a long time ago, and see, to me, it's so common sense, but it's major things for people.
Yeah, that's
No
a
one-
good tip.
No one is teaching anybody anything. That's what I'm trying to spend time teaching people. You got to pass information on. It's not top secret.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for that info.
Okay, over to Al Taylor. Go ahead, Al.
Hi, Don.
Hey,
Checking my hives today, I found a couple of hives that don't have any queens. I thought they did, and all of a sudden they're gone. I'm not sure why. And it's also hard to find queens at the moment. So my question is this. I've got a couple of weaker hives that have queens, and I would like to combine the two queenless hives with the ones that have queens. But the queenless hives are stronger.
mhm.
How should I combine them?
Well, when you open the hive up, take the lid off, the one you say it don't have a queen,
Right.
is it quiet?
No.
It's real noisy?
Yes.
From where you live, what I would do is I'd pull a frame out of the middle of your strong hive and just drop it in there. Make sure the queen's not on there. Just leave the bees on, because if you know if there's no queen there, let them make a queen. You got any drones in any of your hives?
A couple of the hives did have drones, yes.
I would do that. I'm not a big fan of combining hives. I stopped combining hives 45 years ago. That's taking a step back.
Okay.
You might check around. You might find some queens that people will take a chance to mail them to you. If you can add a frame or two of brood from their strong hive, put a new queen, a mated queen in there.
So you have the stronger hive, it's one that does not have a queen.
The stronger one don't.
No, the weaker one does, the stronger one does not.
Well, that's usually the reverse of what happens.
I know.
Well, it's, bees do what they want to do. You might call around and see if anybody has queens. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Okay, over to Pat. Go ahead, Pat.
Yeah, well, I was just going to reiterate that Don said about the mediums. I do all of mine as 8-frame mediums. Started out because I was the beekeeper with no help, and that's what I could lift. And a 8-frame medium full is about 35 pounds. A 10-frame deep is about 95 pounds. And so when you start talking to customers and educating them a little bit, it's very easy to sell medium nukes, especially if you show them how to transition over to deeps if that's what they want. I have a few deep hives because some people are just insistent old school that that's what they've heard and that's the only thing they'll believe. And so we do sell a few deeps, but most of my business is medium nukes and educating new beekeepers. A lot of what I do is backyard beekeepers, they got 2 to 5 hives, kind of, they think that they're not a beginner, but they're not very experienced either. And so that little bit of educating them as to how to transition over to deep frames. A lot of people don't know how to get honey. And I know if you're selling a lot of commercial amounts of bees, you don't want the honey like Don says, but a lot of people want the honey. They just don't know when to put the supers on or how to get it. So if you can put together in your head your little sales pitch of what you can teach people, it's real easy to get gigs, like Don says, of going to bee clubs, having people come to the house, but you have to be able to talk yourself up. You have to be your own salesperson for what you do and what you offer. And so good advice for some of y'all just starting out is to develop that talk. The movie, The Greatest Showman, the circus guy, the reason he was successful was because of his ability to sell himself and and what he could do and how he talked. And so that's what Don does. He does an excellent job of educating because he's good at explaining it in a simple way. Then it's not magic. It's not something secret. And you can make a very good business out of going around and speaking at clubs and garden clubs and that kind of thing. Master gardeners are always looking for a speaker, and if they can get a beekeeper that'll come and speak to a master gardener class, one of the guys in our club here local rents hives. He'll come and put his hive in your yard, and he charges them $300 to deliver the hive. He'll go 4 times during the season and check on it, has a little bit of an agreement as to they don't touch it unless he's present, that kind of thing. And he gives them a little bit of honey at the end of the season. And, you know, gardeners are happy because they have the bees, but his ability to sell what he offers is what makes it so valuable. And so practice in the mirror, practice talking about yourself and what you can do and what the bees do. Why is your honey so good?
Right here,
the
the
guy
chat.
down, yeah,
The
the guy
chat's
down,
good.
yeah, the guy down the road's selling it for $8 a bottle. Why is yours worth 16? Tell him why. Mine's worth 16. I see people in Walmart and they're looking at the powdered honey, and they follow me home to get honey. So, you know, be comfortable with telling people why your product is so good. Practice with what you're going to say. Write out your sales pitch and practice it some, and it'll pay off in the long run. Sell yourself.
I will add to that, don't undercut yourself. If people are saying, oh, I can get it for $4 at Walmart or something like that, well, go get it at Walmart. Mine's
Yep, thank you
natural
very
raw
much.
honey.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thanks for stopping.
Mhm.
And learn to recognize when people are just wasting your time. Don has said this before too. People stop by and want to visit, want to chit chat. It's okay to be friendly, but be real careful that you don't let them waste your time. My time is valuable, and if you want to come spend a day in my bee yard, I'll put you to work and I'll teach you while you're here, but don't just give it all away up front without realizing it. Learn to recognize when people are wasting your time. That's an important thing too. Not that you have to charge everybody, but you know, because Don gives a lot of free time away. People stop by and he visits and that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. Just learn to spot those time wasters. They're easy to pick out.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Pat. All right. Over to Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
We're just saying, Pat. I mean, and I tell you, another good seller of mine is I make a lot of creamed honey. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we hear you.
And, you know, people are like, what's creamed honey? I mean, they never even seen it. And then, you know, I have the lighter spring honey, and now with the darker fall honey, you know, people come up to me and they're like, why is one light and one dark? You know, they're used to going to the store and seeing one type of honey, and that's it, you know? So.
Education is a big part of doing the farmers markets and stuff.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm there with my phone. I'm showing them videos. I wish I could set my computer up there and have like a continuous video going of me working the hives and whatnot. That would be awesome.
But people are going to remember that, and hopefully we'll take something away from that at the farmers market.
Yeah, yeah. I know. I could sit there all day and talk to people, but my wife's like, we're here to sell honey, not to chat with people all day long.
Pat, you have something to add in?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say, my husband built me a little one-frame observation hive. And my first 2 years, I went everywhere somebody would let me go. I went to Whole Foods and sat out front and sold honey, took my little observation hive. People walk by and they're like, you got bees? Oh my gosh. They don't realize that the honey in the store is Karo syrup, is high fructose corn syrup. It's just got a little bit of coloring in it, and the government allows them to sell it as 100% natural, organic honey. So a little bit of education and that little bait to get people to stop and talk. I've got people that I met 10 years ago that when I post on my Facebook page, I'm bottling honey, they drive 50 miles to see me. I don't have to go anymore. But that time up front, Paul, you're thinking you're wasting your time talking to everybody. Make sure you give everybody you talk to a business card.
Oh,
and
yeah.
tell them, watch my Facebook page, my website, whatever you have,
Yeah.
You know, watch it. When I'm bottling honey, come out, come visit, that kind of thing. It really starts to pay off after you do it, because it does seem like it's awful to sit in farmers markets. I love to visit with people, but you do a lot of sitting and talking and going and hauling all your stuff, and you know, you hope you're going to sell some, but it's real good to be able to sit here and I'm way out in the country, so I like having company come visit, and I sell honey, and so I don't have to go anymore. But that upfront time is well spent time. It'll pay off.
Well, I even sell wholesale to some farmers markets, and every time I drop honey off there, you know, there's one woman, she's like, you wouldn't believe how many customers come back to me and tell me how good your honey is. And, you know, it really makes you feel good when you get, you know, when you get compliments like that, because, you know, to me, when I hear something like that, it's worth my time and effort.
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't do taste testings either. If you want to buy my honey, that's great. Thank you. But no, I can't open this bottle. It's got a foil seal in here. I don't open my product and let people taste it. I know what I'm selling. And if they say, well, I can get it from the guy down the road for $8, thank you very much. I appreciate you stopping by. And when he doesn't have it available, give me a call, because I have it available all year. And I sell bees in the spring, and I do this, but it'll pay off. It really does. Tell them everything you do. Tell them to give you a call if you can help them. And, you know, people tell other people that I'll come get bees out of their barn or their shed or the corner of their house or whatever. You know, the police chief knows that I pick up bees now. And so when the 911 gets a call, they call me. Those are free bees. I bring them home, make a couple of splits, you know, make some queens off of them, see how they are. And that builds up your amount of bees that you've got, your genetic diversity. If they're good quality bees that you've got out of the wild, if they're surviving in the wild, they're pretty good bees usually.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I get a hell of a lot of calls to get rid of hornets as well, but I tell people.
Take a picture, and then take a picture, send me the picture, and I'll call you right back as soon as I see the picture. Because we did an awful lot at first of going and looking. Lady called me one day hysterical. There were honeybees in her shrubs right beside her garage, and they were chasing her. So we got in the car and went over there because I was real concerned about the woman. And they were little wasps that were getting on the box elder blooms that she had there, the little box shrubs, you know, and they were blooming, and they were tearing her up. They were vicious little boogers because they weren't honeybees.
Well, I tell that to people now too. I said, first send me a picture and I'll call you back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Especially this time of year up in New York, Paul. They're always, yeah, I got bees. No, you don't.
Yeah.
I don't allow Leon to go on a ladder, but I've got the number of a guy that will go on a ladder and do, you know, high 2-story work and stuff. And so, you know, that's where you're networking with other beekeepers that you know are honest and reliable. You know, my beekeeper.
How much do you charge
to go get them?
To get do a cutout?
I don't do cutouts.
Oh.
We'll go get them if they're hanging on a mailbox or, you know.
How much do you charge for that?
Most of the time just for the bees and, you know, selling honey. I know, but I don't want to do it a whole lot. I'm not doing it as a business. I do it to get bees. And so now there are guys in town that charge $500 to come out.
Right.
And so you can make a lot of money off of it. Absolutely.
Well, it depends on what is a lot of money. I mean, I've had calls, you know, 3 to 5 miles from here that they're hanging on a bush.
Mm-hmm.
I charge $75, or I just get a student. And, you know, I personally, you know, I don't do it. I mean,
right.
And then as far as tasting, I have people, in fact, I sold 4 quarts in the last 5 days of honey. And my own personal stuff I pulled for myself. People drove up and said, I seen your hives, do you sell honey? I said, I'm not in the honey business. You can buy honey cheaper at Walmart. I said, but I'll show you the honey that I got. And I have 3 or 4 jars out there in different colors. And I have they're like a sucker stick, but they're half size. I buy them in bulk. And I says, I'll let you do something that Walmart won't let you do. You can put that stick in there and taste it. If you don't want it, there's no hard feelings. You don't have to buy it. And I've had the last 2 customers that stopped, one at 1 quart of honey and ended up buying 2 different flavors. So And then another thing, as far as you're afraid to talk to people, I've had students come here, and after 2 or 3 lessons, you can do a very basic beekeeping course.
Yep.
$25, 4 to 5 hours, and all you have
Yep.
to do is line up boxes, say, this is a medium, this is a deep, this is a nuke, this is a mini box, and explain what each purpose is for, different size frames, and what you use them for.
Yep.
You know, and let them show them how to light a smoker. I mean,
Yep.
the simplest things, and then explain to them about hive tools and all these things.
Mhm.
And then you do a few of those, and pretty soon you're getting in the ball game, and then pretty soon bee clubs call you and are actually paying you.
Yeah, and that's how you get your name out there for selling nukes too. I know a lot of people have good results with putting them on Craigslist. I didn't have good results with that. I got a lot of crackpots just wasting my time with Craigslist. But
I don't fool with Craigslist.
yeah, I don't either. I find that the beekeepers are my best advertising. They
If
tell
you
their
could get a
friends and the
club,
other.
and the
Mhm.
club members are happy. Georgia's got one that the president of bee club's buying all of his nukes next year.
Yeah.
So every year you get new customers, new beekeepers.
Yeah.
Treat
I
the
have my old
customer right.
customers bring new customers, and so
Mhm.
that's your best advertising is word of mouth. You can
Right.
pay a lot of money for advertising, and it's your best is your qualities. So that's why when you're selling those nukes, make sure you open them and you show the people what they're getting. Here's the queen, this is the pattern, and talk about it, because they'll go buy them somewhere else and they just give them the boxes and put them in the car, and they don't know what they're getting home with, and they're dead and they don't produce and this, that, and the other. But that's the person that comes back and brings their friends, and that's what you want. So
Yeah.
that time spent is well worth it.
Now, as far as when you're going to sell nukes, you're going to have to figure out which avenue you want. Now, Pat is saying that she can handle the mediums. Now, I've had, and since I've been teaching here, I've probably had 5 students, and the first thing they say is, I'm only going to run mediums. Okay, here's the thing I try to explain to them. You are automatically cutting 50% of your sales off at the knees. You know how many commercial people stop by and buy 50, 100 nukes? I mean, they can make bees. Time is money. If they have a nuke that's ready or a pollinator for replacements, they will buy it. So there is your markup or your market for your deeps. A lot of people want mediums. I get the same price for a medium as I do for a deep. Same price. It's a convenience, and it's something that most people are not producing. Queens, there's no reason in this world you can't make in your backyard 100, 200 extra queens all the time. Buy mini nukes, cup of bees. I've done videos on it. And all it takes is a frame of honey, a queen cell, a cup of bees, and you're ready to go. Anybody got questions about getting into business or even getting into the bee business and losing money? We'll try to give you guidelines on that.
George, you had your hand up earlier, didn't you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I bet many beekeepers can't keep up with Don. I've seen him slap run from one side of the yard to the other. I couldn't keep up with him. And the migratory lids, like he was asking earlier about the migratory and the telescoping lids, but if you go in the hives every day, I like the telescoping lids better because they do have that buffer from the rain going in there if it could. But if you're not going to work them every day and they propylize them down, then they're a little harder to take off. So through the winter, I was going to run the migratory lids, but the summertime when I'm in them every day, I just use the telescoping lids.
Yeah, you have to figure out what is going to work for you. The biggest advice I could get anybody that's going to go in and make money at beekeeping, figure out what you want to do. Now, Paul is an example. He was into honey, and now he's made his self thing to do bees. Now, sell bees. If you want to make money, focus on one thing, maybe 2. Don't get in there and make lip balms, soap. You only got so much time. You can't be making soap and you need to be building boxes for the following year. I'm making boxes right now for spring. Because if I don't get them done and painted by February, they're done getting loaded. And we brought up several hundred supers from other yards that's been out working for like 2 years with no paint on them. So they have to be repaired and painted. Painting is a luxury. If you got really pretty boxes, you either have a lot of time in your hands or don't have enough bees. So get more bees and they'll look like mine.
Well, mine are nice and bright and colorful, but I got a 12-year-old daughter that's painted all mine because I sure couldn't have done it.
There you go. Child labor laws.
Hey, I can't help it. I can't help it. Hey, you gotta use all the help you can get, Bo.
Okay. Paul, going back to the telescoping lids versus the migratory lids, up here where we are, I'm switching over to the migratory lids because then you can push all your nukes right tight together, and that'll help prevent, you know, the wind flow through there and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
So something to keep in mind.
No, that's what I'm doing too. I mean, I have all telescoping lids also, but I just built the 5-frame migratory lids because I want to slide them all together. And the same thing with the double nukes. I just built migratory lids for them also. I want to slide those all together as well.
Okay.
So,
One thing to consider even up north is ventilation. We're finding that more ventilation. We're doing 1 1/8 hole in the front and 1 in the back. The ones in the back, put screen over them. The ones in the front, put screen over it. They'll propylize it shut if there's too much, but I'd rather have too much and let them propylize it than not have enough. If you get moisture in the wintertime, you got bees that's gonna, you know, be lost.
well, I'm putting the feeding shim on, and then I'm using the quilt box on top. I'm going to pack it with burlap to suck up the moisture, and I'm going to have plenty of ventilation this year. I learned my lesson last year, boy. That was a mess. Oh.
It costs money to make those mistakes.
And a hell of a lot of time to clean it up as well.
Yep.
Oh.
Okay. Over to Amir. Go ahead, Amir.
How's everybody? Quick question.
Okay.
Don, what do you think? Because I'm on a small scale at this point, as far as this syrup that Mann Lake sells by the gallon or 5 gallon, as far as just trying to build them up real quick or build them up for the winter, or should I'm probably got a 2-to-1 mix of sugar to water. Would it hurt if you increase the 2-to-1 mix to more?
Well, I'm buying what is a premix. It's basically about a 5-to-1. It goes through a heat process. It won't crystallize, and it won't, you know, we don't cut it. So, you know, if you can get a bucket from Mann Lake or someone close to it, the syrup, you know, it's something you have to experiment to see for yourself. We've experimented around and mixing up a 2-to-1, even a 3-to-1 versus the premix. The premix is like double the amount of where they build up faster, and they draw comb all the time as long as you're at premix. But there's a lot of people can't afford it. You know, I just went down and picked up a tote, and we're going to go back in about 4 or 5 days and pick up another 6 totes.
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
Other question. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening.
It's just some people can't afford, you know, a large investment. So sugar, I mean, that's, you know, we use sugar ourselves, but buying 5-6 tons at a time, and then you spend 4 to 6 hours mixing up a tote of sugar. And if you don't mix it good and dump a little bit of bleach with it, it starts to ferment on you. So you have to weigh out all these different things.
Okay. Would you still carry the brood builder additive in? Do you do that in the syrup and as well as the sugar?
We're not adding no brood builder at all right now. They're bringing a little bit of pollinane. I really don't want them queens to go on fire right now because they'll starve themselves out.
Right. Right.
You have to let bees kind of do their natural cycle, and this is the time of the year where they're starting to slow down.
Okay. Okay. Other question. I treated with what is it? The strips. It's formic acid. And so I used 2 strips in my double 8-frame. And man, I immediately saw dead bees. I saw pupae, where they must have just pulled the uncapped the brood and pulled them out. So at first I was alarmed, and then I said, well, okay, well, maybe those bees were highly affected with mites in the first place.
Did you pick any up and look at them?
I didn't. No, I didn't. And another thing that I still had an entrance reducer, solid wood entrance reducer in there. So I thought the ventilation also was an issue. So I pulled that out. I've got holes drilled in front and back on the boxes, but and I used single strips in the 2 5 frames, and I didn't see any losses.
Mm-hmm.
And so you know, but they were fairly new in the brood. I told you that's where I had those 2 new queens in there. So they were just had new brood in there. So I didn't figure they were heavily infested with any mites, but I knew I had mites in those 2 double 8 frames. So
the type of treatments that you put in your hive, you need to talk to enough people. I'm not going to give you a lot of negatives about a lot of these different treatments, because, you know, the best treatment I think you can do, and probably do it twice a month, would be the vapor, oxalic acid. And according to, you know, the regulations, we'll put apivars, and, you know, they're supposed to be like a shelf life of 45, maybe 60 days.
Mm-hmm.
That is basically an impregnated piece of plastic. If you scrape it, you reactivate it. That thing is actually a kill you in, you know, for at least 4 years.
Right. Okay.
But the manufacturer, if he tells you that, then you buy them one time, you'll be using them for several years. I put them in when I know the bee inspector's coming, because they don't approve of the methods of oxalic acid. But if you was to do a alcohol wash or anything else, you know, you're not finding mites. So evidently it works.
Okay.
It's another thing I found, that with this hot weather, I was worried about bees being overheated. And I went down, got hives all set up 3-4 weeks ago for winter. And I reduced the entrances down to 1 or 1.5 inches wide in an 8 frame down south, and with a ventilation hole in the back. And my grandson called me up and said bees was bearding. Those hives had probably 8 to 15 beetles average per hive. When I went down to recheck them, there wasn't no beetles no more. So I started thinking about old stuff that I read. There's some bees that build temperature up to kill an intruder. So the natural temperature, 99 degrees outside, and then temperature inside the hive, you know, I think it was natural. Plus, you know, I pre-treated my boards with DE and Crisco and food coloring. So that when the mites walk through it, it cuts them up. So it seems to be working. I haven't been doing a whole lot of talking about it. I've been doing it basically for 2 years, and my mite or my beetle count is way low. George has probably made that comment too here, where he had a bunch of beetles, and I'm under the trees. So basically, I'm doing everything wrong. I'm under the shade trees with no beetles, and got to put it in the hot sun. I don't like to work in the hot sun personally.
Right, right. We had a couple 90-some degree days here this past week, and I saw some bearding, but I seem to be having some success with the swifter strips.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a lot of beetles caught up in that. So, you know, I may see 1 or 2 crawling when I open the hive, but other than that.
Put the smooth side down and the rough side up.
Right, right. Yeah. So
they work good. I mean, the disadvantage of them things is the cost, and then you have to pull them out about 3 to 4 weeks if you've got a lot of beetles. They get knotted up like.
Right.
You know.
Right. Okay. I was just concerned. I was concerned about the queen getting caught, but I checked the day. I see them in there and they're moving, and I see a couple maybe worker bees in there. Maybe had gotten caught up, but other than that, not really a lot of problems with bees getting caught in the swifter strip. So
we've used them for I'd say at least 4 years, and I've never seen a queen in it. I've seen a few, very few worker bees. And I think what it is bees are chasing beetles, and they chase them up on it, and I think they get a little tangled up in it.
Right.
Just my opinion on it, but you know, you got to do what is going to work for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
All right.
Over to Dennis. Go ahead, Dennis.
Hey, Don, on your stuff you're using, that DE and the Crisco and the food coloring, What keeps the bees from getting hurt? Are they just stand up above it, or is the beetles getting into it and getting?
Well, what I do is I get a spatula, which is like a rubber little spatula, you know, in the kitchen. I get about a teaspoon to a teaspoon and a half, and I dab a little bit in each corner. Then I take the spatula and I spread it out thin. So basically the bees come in. I've never seen much bees getting, hurt by it or anything. The beetles is what's on the bottom board, and then in the corners. The corners where I dab a little bit.
Okay.
It seems to be working. That's all I can say. It might not be an approved method, but it works.
Well, it's just another thing to add to the arsenal. I was just kind of curious. So in the back of in the corners.
Right.
Okay, that makes more sense. That's where the beetles will be. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Pat, did you have another question? Comment?
Well, I was just gonna say, I do deeps and mediums, and so I do offer both of those. But also, a lot of people sell one frame. So let's say the beekeeper calls up and says, I can't find a queen, I don't have any brood. Will you give me some bees or some eggs? I'll sell you a frame of eggs. Do you do that, Don, or do you offer anything like that?
I try not to do it personally. I have sold frames of honey, $100 a frame. If I have springtime and I have some booming hives, if I have a frame of brood, I'll sell it for $50 minimum. And then most of the time it's got a 2-inch band of honey on it. So it depends on the customer and how well I know them. And if they're trying to make queens from it or whatever the situation is. But a lot of times I'll spend a little time and ask them why is it they need that, and try to help them fix their problem.
Okay.
If you're not inspected, another thing is, we're state inspected. If you're not inspected and you sell a frame of brood to someone, you have to realize you can be sued, So think about those things. People don't think about it. Same thing with honey. You can be sued on selling honey to people.
Yeah, we have to be sued. We have to be inspected here in Virginia too. But I run into a lot of beekeepers that don't want anybody in their business, and so they don't want to be inspected. What do you think about? Should you get inspected if you have to? Do you? I know that sounds shady, but a lot of people are afraid to get the government on their land, so they don't want to call the inspector.
Well, I've been a commercial beekeeper a long time, and I try to explain to my students, because that question has come up many times, and I try to explain to customers and the students the same thing. If you don't get inspected and you sell, say, 2 nukes to someone, and they come back and they say, we put those 2 nukes in one of our bee yards, we lost 100 hives. Now they come back to sue you. Now, if you've been inspected, you can hold your certificate up and say, now I've been inspected and the state says I'm free of all communicable diseases. So, it's a personal choice. The bee inspectors in the state of Georgia, I've talked to several. There's not enough of them. They're not really regulating it as far as casual sales. Is when you start selling interstate is when you have to worry. Now, if you're transporting across state lines, if you don't have an inspection, they can confiscate them. I mean, something to think about. You just, it's, to me, I think it has more good points. Most of these bee inspectors, it's not what you call the government. To them, it's a job. They're coming for one thing. They want to see if you got disease, and that's what they're looking for.
Right, because we still have American foul brood in America, and so it's important to be inspected, I think. But a lot of people are afraid of the government.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of people still bury their money too. They don't put it in the bank.
So I should come over to your house with my metal detector and the shovel. That's all.
Okay, over to Julie. Go ahead, Julie.
Yes, I've heard of the DE, or I do the DE, but food coloring, why food coloring? I've never heard of that.
You never heard of it?
Yes.
Of you using DE? I'll tell you, there's probably 50% of the things that I do here is not approved or doesn't so-called work. I am a tinkerer. I tinker, I experiment. I'm basically a self-taught beekeeper. And that's what I keep telling people. I'm not a master beekeeper. I've tried so darn many things. I lost money at things. I lost hives. I know what works, what won't work. And when people run things by me with these new ideas, I say, you're wasting your time.
So why do you use food coloring? What does it do?
Basically,
Are you able to see?
it's like really fine shavings of glass, and snails go through it. It cuts them up. Bees and larvae go through it. The bees, their legs are long enough; it don't seem to bother them. But the beetles are so close, they get in it and it cuts out their exoskeletons. So it's a natural way to take care of them.
She's asking about why you're putting the food coloring in, not the DE.
Oh,
Thank
because she was breaking in and out on my computer. DE is white. It's like white sand. And if you put it with shortening, you got two white products. How do you know if you got it mixed? So if you put a little food coloring in it, when the food coloring blends uniform, then you got it mixed.
Okay, thank you.
High tech.
Over to John. Go ahead, John.
Hey, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Don, I want to back up a little bit. I think you really touched on something that's really important and went by quick, and that's with high heat within a hive.
Mm-hmm.
I had such a rush this year to build boxes that I forgot to put any type of ventilation in my boxes. So I split the bees, and I figured I'd go back in the yard later and drill some holes in there, which I was lazy and didn't go back and do.
No time.
Yeah. And then we had 3 days in a row with heat indexes close to 115 degrees. I thought my bees were going to be dead. I was going back there trying to crack the lids, but the bees were robbing, so I couldn't really leave them open. And I did my first mite treatment on September 1st. It was late because they weren't capping my honey, and I refused to give up on my honey. So when I did my mite drop count, I had hardly any mites in my hive. And I don't know if it chased them out of the hive. I saw a few dead ones on the bottom, but I really think there's something there. I think the bees are masters at ventilation, and I think they can overcome any situation you give them. The only thing I'm concerned with, which I'll change, is going in the winter, because that moisture in the wintertime is absolutely deadly, I think, to bees. I lost a lot of bees at the end of last season as the temperatures were jumping up and down in the spring, and I lost some to moisture. So, but I'd like to see somebody do some more research into that heat control, because I thought
there is a bunch of that right now. In fact, there's a company, it's called Thermal Industries. They sent me this gadget. It's like a heating pad, a metal heating pad. They sent it to me free. You stick it in the hive and you crank it up with this thermostat, and it runs the temperature up. The drawback, they say it's almost 100% no mites. The biggest drawback, I never even opened the box. They sent it to me as to try it out, and I basically end up sending it back. Because after I start reading about it, I don't have time for 2 hours or 2.5 hours per hive if you're running 200 hives to a location. So for someone who's got 4 or 5 hives and they can do one here and one there, it probably would work. So it's basically the same thing as by closing your hive up. And when bees beard, that is a no-brainer. That's how you can make splits, and you don't even open the hive up. And people can't imagine that. Just get a milk jug, and when they're bearding, you get all your boxes set up, get your queen cells ready. You go along and you get a milk jug, cut the bottom out, leave the handle on. You scoop up a scoop, drop them in a box, put a queen cell in there. You don't even open the box. You're not disturbing the queen, and you close them up for 2 days. Splits are made without even opening the box, and people say, you can't do that.
That's amazing. I'm gonna have to try that. I had a lot of bearding bees this year, so.
The biggest thing that I keep telling people, come here, there's 3 people in the bee yard, put you out of business. Wouldn't, couldn't, and can't. You know, listen to 10% of what I tell you, it works.
Well, I'm hoping to come down and see you soon. So
Okay.
in the near future, so.
Get your thinking cap on, because I'll put you to work.
Well, I've hit the treadmill, so that's why I want to be in some kind of shape when I get down to your boot camp there. I hear it's pretty tough.
Oh, it ain't tough. I sit down and watch students work all day.
Well, that was all I had to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we're in overtime, so I'm going to take one more question out of Greg, who got here late tonight. Thanks for joining us, Greg.
Hey, sorry, running late, and I apologize if the question's already been asked. When you said that honey gets in the way, man, that I'm up to my eyeballs. Not only pulling honey off ours last minute before the rain comes, but helping some other folks out with getting their honey pulled. I got a question, Don. Is one of the yards that I'm mentoring in, helping these new beginners out in their yard? I've seen it all the way through. It's your stock that's overwintered here in Ohio. It's queens that I've made off that. They're doing wonderful, maybe too good. At this particular yard, they just have one hive, and I know you said it before, or you made a counterpoint to it. A lot of folks say you can't make honey first year off a hive. That's baloney. We're pulling 2 supers off that are surplus, so 16 frames surplus hives off this, and all we've done is just manage it from day one all the way through. Here's my question. It may have something to do with potential, some kind of Varroa resistance to these after overwintering from your stock. I don't know what it is. We went the alcohol wash monitoring route to kind of see where mites were. When we got to 2%, we did 3 weeks in a row of a Salic using a Provate.
Mm-hmm.
Came back the following week, did another alcohol wash, and all of a sudden we're up to 16 mites, which is 5%. I mean, huge. The only thing that I can think is that a lot of folks will argue back and forth about the phenomenon called a mite bomb.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's been hives this late in the season that's crashed nearby, and they've picked up and came home with these bees. The bees are absolutely tremendously prolific. Tons of brood, tons of honey, and not a single deformed wing. No visible mites that I can see, but you find them in the alcohol wash. I'm actually going to head out there in the morning and get the rest of their honey spun off. And then my initial thought, my knee-jerk reaction is just to go ahead and put a single mite away strip on top. I've already done Osalic 3 weeks in a row. What would you recommend we do to try to get these mites under control, even though the bees don't seem to be affected by them?
I don't think I'd use mite away. I mean, that's just personal choice. I mean, there's
Okay.
Top Guard, there's a lot of, I think the safest on the bees and everything would be your Apivar. That's only a personal thing. I've had best luck with that to overwinter with if you need to. But
well, I spiked from 2% to 5%.
That happens.
I feel like I need to do something soon. All I have right now is Osalic and mite away strips.
Okay. Well, see, right now people are moving bees. A lot of people are moving south of bees, so you can have 0 and go out there in 2 hours, and you could have 15 because people are driving down the road. I mean, same thing with your beetles. Same identical thing. And in the fall, you've got a lot of migration of beekeepers moving south, moving bees from one yard to another. So, I mean, sometimes you got to think ahead a little bit and reason out what's going on. I mean, I wouldn't even worry with that kind of count because the bees will take care of it.
At 5%, you wouldn't worry about?
I wouldn't worry. I mean, I'd put a strip in if you're really worried about it. I would go in and pull some of your brood. Get a toothpick and uncap at least 10 of them. Check the brood, see what's going on there.
Okay. All right. I know you're not one to specifically say, hey, do this, and you teach us to think through it first. But that's my only options right now. And to get back to that yard, I'm going to be another probably 10 weeks to 14 days before I can get back and do anything. So my only window is really tomorrow. So it's either Osalic, mite away, or nothing. So I'm kind of on the fence. That's why I wanted to ask you, what? I don't want to.
I would do the Oxalic myself. I mean,
Okay.
Strictly, you got to make that decision,
So maybe just get back on another 3-week program with the Osalic?
Well, I done a chat about talking to a fellow that I know in Germany, and he got down to where he was doing oxalic acid once a week because the big to-do back then was if you do too much, that damages the bees. And he said he did mite counts. So once you do it once a month, you pretty much got things under control. So he did it once a week for 6 weeks. with no ill effects. And he said, once there's no mites, you're wasting your time.
Okay.
Personally,
Well,
you know, I would do it
We'll
twice.
do it once a week.
Yeah, do it once a week.
And we'll check back in here in a month, and we'll see how we'll see what if anything, it'll be maybe a learning opportunity for folks. I hate to say I'm afraid of mite away strips, but you have no idea how harmful those things are until you actually open up that tub, and it'll make you. It takes your breath away.
Right.
And even grab the instructions to read it. I mean, it's so laced with formic. And in those instructions, that's where you lose 1,500 bees a day, every day for the first 3 days, and it still warns you about queen fatality under the right circumstance.
Right.
So I hate to use it if I don't have to.
Well, that's the thing you have to judge if it's worthwhile to you. Now,
Yeah.
I've told I even told you when you're down here, going through winter, I've seen hives with a fistful of bees, size of a grapefruit, size of a navel orange. And as soon as the weather changed, they boom.
They explode. It happened here with your bees for sure. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Appreciate it, Don. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think John wanted to follow up on something. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I have no studies to back this up, but the residual effect of oxalic acid is 3 days from the time you vaporize, they say. That's what people in the know tell me. I vape every 3 days for 4 shots in a row because I started so late. So basically, I covered that whole 10-day brood cycle that you have where the mites can't be touched inside those cap cells because drones, I think, hatch out at around 10. And then I give them a break because it does stun them. I'll tell you that. The hive slows down for about 2 weeks. Then it comes back gangbusters.
Yeah.
So I'm not telling you what to do, but I just tried it this year for the first time because I treated so late. It really just seemed to help with the heat as well. And then when I did start treating, so I don't know how hard that is on the bees or what anybody thinks about that, doing it even closer.
Well, the thing is, you know, it gets down to personal choice. I would rather have something that oxalic acid, you can use it, you know, 4 or 5 times a month versus those strips, you know, and if you're following those strips or even the little tubs that you put in, you're looking at a one-time deal there and you've got 10 hives, you're looking at some money there. Now, if you're running a yard to make some money, you're running 100 hives out there, you're talking some change now. So, you know, you can buy oxalic acid for, on like Amazon, $10. I think it's $10.50 for 2 pounds. The last we bought was 25-pound bag. I think was $37.50 shipped. I mean, you're not going to get nothing that's been proven any cheaper. You're buying a lot of propaganda, what someone says you do. See, in Georgia, they're not wanting to recognize oxalic acid because no one's making any money. They want you to put strips in, so they say that way they know that the bees are treated. That's, you know, government for you.
Yeah. Well, I have the state inspector coming next week, and I think he's going to visit Mr. Blevins too. I don't know if he got a hold of Mr. Blevins or not, but we'll see what the mite load is because he's really they do a pretty good inspection here, and I'll be curious to see because I'll hit him 4 more times before he gets here next week, and I'll know exactly where I'm at with my mite count. So,
are you using like a hand one, or are you using a ProVap, or what are you using?
ProVape 110. And what I found, a lot of times what I do is I shoot into the entrance, and I only run a 1.5 inch opening at all time. I can't open them up anymore; they just get robbed out. So I find what kills the bees, what hurts them the most, is that initial blast of steam or heat that comes off the end of that ProVape. So I start out a little further from the hive, and then I drop it, and I try to aim it towards the corners, so it's not directly at the bees on the bottom. You know, you still lose a few that way.
Yeah.
But I just think that the ProVape is the way to go, and I have never used Mite Away or Aprovar or Formic or nothing for 3 years, just oxalic acid. And I lose a few hives, but I'm under the average nationally. So,
well, you're going to lose no matter how well you treat. You're going to lose some hives, you know. And I just look at it, you know, the weak is going to, you know, the strong is going to survive, the weak is going to perish. I would rather graft from something that made it through the winter and something that didn't have to, you know, kind of patch up and get it through there. I think that's why, we're getting a better and stronger queen program. Stephen's setting up 500 new ones down there. I'm going to set up a couple of hundred here. So we're going to try to look at maybe 500 to 1,000 queens once a week going out. Because, I'm trying to get enough students where they can start selling, but, there's only so many hours in a day. You can only do so much.
Now, one quick question, if you don't mind me following up. With the VHS queens and these hygienic queens that people are trying to develop, I did buy a few of those this year just to play around in this one apiary. The second one I have, it's kind of isolated. They are mean bees.
Right.
Is that part of being mite resistance to just have an attitude?
Well, my personal opinion, I think it's a little propaganda. It's like, I've talked to people, I got the meanest, nastiest hive and they make the most honey. Well, if you stop and think about it, all the bees' stomachs are the same size. Because they're mean doesn't make them haul more honey. It's just, maybe you're not in them as often. So if you can't work something, or if you have a tool you can't use, what good is it? I want to be able to work my bees 7 days a week, rain or shine, if I have to. So I've tried other people's bees. I have bought some, and I know Marla Spivak. I know a lot of people out there. I get bees sent to me for trial. I've used Ray Overres bees several years ago. They're good producers, but they're a little on the testy side. I've used Russians here 5 or 6 years ago. I basically bought breeder queens and got rid of the breeder queens fast. I couldn't walk out my door. And what I've found is the bees do not stay on the frame when you're doing the inspection. They're up in the air. So, I use very little smoke. And if you can't work your bees, then you ain't got nothing.
Well, there was one particular bee that was just her. She chased me 35, 40 yards back to my car. I was swinging at her the whole time. I don't know how she didn't sting me. I finally locked myself in the car, and then I put my bee suit on and went back out after. I said, all right, but it was unreal. I've never had a bee be so persistent as far as wanting to sting.
Well, see, you mentioned the VSHB. Now, why did you buy that? Because of what you read?
Absolutely.
Now, there's nobody at any time can tell you that they read anything about my bees that I advertise. I don't tell you other than my bees are honeybees. My customers or whoever's got my bees, they say what's going on. They work them. I'm not going to say, I'll put on my website, I got the gentlest bees, my bees won't sting you. So I'm not trying to build business. I want people to say, well, I've got his bees, and Greg will tell you the same thing. He was a little leery when he first come down here, and right away, seen the difference.
Well, she's going to be pinched and replaced with a fat bee man queen in the spring for sure. There's no doubt about that.
Well, there's a lot of people that's going to sell queens out there. So just because someone down the road or across the country's got bees, queens $10 cheaper, it's going to take you 3 to 5 years to get that bad bloodline back out of your line. So watch where you get your bloodlines at and try to keep them as close as you can.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll do it for tonight then. We're at 30 minutes in overtime here. So thank you, Don.
Time and a half.
Time and a half.
Time and a half.
Get overtime.
Yeah.
So you guys can stick around for the after chat if you'd like to. But thank you, Don. We'll see everyone in 2 weeks.
I appreciate everybody showing up, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. And I'm going to get out of here, so don't talk about me now.
Never.
See you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Good night, everybody.